Who was Jeffrey Epstein and what are the court documents about? Formerly redacted names of the financier and sex offenders network were revealed in records unsealed on Wednesday. Previously redacted names of disgraced financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's expansive network of friends and business associates have been revealed this week in the form of nearly 1,000 pages of court records, which were unsealed on Wednesday. Many names of these associates and those in the inner circle of Epstein, who died in jail awaiting federal sex trafficking charges in 2019, had been formerly redacted from court documents. In anticipation of these revelations, social media had been abuzz with speculation as to what they will yield. To help paint a clearer picture of why this matters, here's what we know about the documents. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? A millionaire known for associating with celebrities, politicians, billionaires, and academic stars, Epstein was initially arrested in Palm Beach, Florida, in 2005 after he was accused of paying a 14-year-old girl for sex. Dozens of other underage girls described similar sexual abuse, but prosecutors ultimately allowed the financier to plead guilty in 2008 to a charge involving a single victim. He served 13 months in a jail work release program. Some famous acquaintances abandoned Epstein after his conviction, including former presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, but many did not. Epstein continued to mingle with the rich and famous for another decade, often through philanthropic work. Reporting by the Miami Herald renewed interest in the scandal, and federal prosecutors in New York charged Epstein in 2019 with sex trafficking. He died by suicide in jail while awaiting trial. The U.S. attorney in Manhattan then prosecuted Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, for helping recruit his underage victims. She was convicted in 2021 and is serving a 20-year prison term. What are these records about? The documents being unsealed are part of a lawsuit filed against Maxwell in 2015 by one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre. She is one of the dozens of women who sued Epstein saying he had abused them at his homes in Florida, New York, the U.S. Virgin Islands and New Mexico. Giuffre said the summer she turned 17, she was lured away from a job as a spa attendant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club to become a masseuse for Epstein, a job that involved performing sexual acts. Giuffre also claimed she was pressured into having sex with men in Epstein's social orbit, most famously with Britain's Prince Andrew. All of those men said her accounts were fabricated. She settled a lawsuit against Prince Andrew in 2022. That same year, Giuffre withdrew an accusation she had made against Epstein's former attorney, the law professor Alan Dershowitz, saying she may have made a mistake in identifying him as an abuser. Giuffre's lawsuit against Maxwell was settled in 2017, but the Miami Herald went to court to access court papers initially filed under seal, including transcripts of interviews the lawyers did with potential witnesses. About 2,000 pages were unsealed by a court in 2019. Additional documents were released in 2020, 2021, and 2022. This next batch of records had remained sealed because of concerns about the privacy rights of Epstein's victims and other people whose names had come up during the legal battle but were not complicit in his crimes. What is in the documents? U.S. District Judge Loretta A. Priska, who evaluated the documents to decide what should be unsealed, said in her December order that she was releasing the records because much of the information within them was already public. Some records have been released, either in part or in full, in other court cases. Much of the rest involve topics and people who have been exhaustively covered in nearly 2 decades worth of newspaper stories, TV documentaries, interviews, books, and testimony at Maxwell's criminal trial. The people named in the records include many of Epstein's accusers, members of his staff who told their stories to tabloid newspapers, people who served as witnesses at Maxwell's trial, people who were mentioned in passing during depositions but are not accused of anything salacious, and people who investigated Epstein, including prosecutors, a journalist, and a detective. There are also boldface names of Public figures known to have associated with Epstein over the years, but whose relationships with him have already been well documented elsewhere, the judge said. One of them is Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent close to Epstein who was awaiting trial on charges that he raped underage girls when he killed himself in a Paris jail in 2022. Jeffrey was among the women who had accused Brunel of sexual abuse. Clinton and Trump both factor in the court file, partly because Jeffrey was questioned by Maxwell's lawyers about inaccuracies in newspaper stories about her time with Epstein. One story quoted her as saying she had ridden in a helicopter with Clinton and flirted with Trump. Jeffrey said neither of those things actually happened. She has not accused either former president of wrongdoing. The judge said a handful of names should remain blacked out in the documents because they would identify people who were sexually abused.